Here we go. Let's start off here, January 15th. This is the Lord talking. My face is shining upon you, beaming of peace that transcends understanding. You are surrounded by a sea of problems, but you are face to face with me, your peace. Let's stop right there. First of all, God is saying, my face is shining upon you, meaning I am there with you. And he's shining because in the Bible, Jesus says, I am the light of the world. That indicates that the world is dark. The world's full of darkness because it's a fallen world. There's sin and temptation, etc. The world is filled with people, you and I, who are broken. We are flawed, and frankly, we are by nature sinful. So this is a dark world. He is the light, so there's nothing that can shine like he can. He shines above religion. He shines above your favorite person. He shines above idols, above anything and anyone we can think of. Why? Because he is to perfection. Even unbelievers, this can't be argued. Many people can build a case against God. Many people can have something against Jesus, but we can't argue the fact that he is to perfection. His light beams out peace. And the Bible talks about how the peace that he has to give is not like the peace that the world has to offer. And like it says in the song, I've tasted his goodness. That's me all the way. I've tasted his goodness. And I can attest to this. His peace is different than what the peace of the world is. Frankly, his peace is better. There's nothing like it out there. A third thing that Jesus is saying, you are surrounded by a sea of problems. He is saying there that he knows, and we're going to get to the part about understanding because he does understand, but he knows that we're up against problems. He knows the difficulties that we face. And in the midst of those problems, he's saying, but you're face to face with me. Because if he is with us, then we are with him. Now, many of us, we don't feel that it's there. We don't see that he's there. We don't feel that he's there. And then we end up not believing he's there. But it doesn't change the fact that he's there, whether we believe it or not. If it was easy for us to feel him, see him, we would not need faith. And the Bible talks so much about faith, how to acquire it, how to keep it, what faith looks like. But in this passage, we would just be pretty much talking about God's love and how to acquire it, how to get help from him. Let's read on. As long as you focus on me, you are safe. See right there, what Jesus is saying so far is that in the midst of you having problems, if you put your attention on me, if you face me, when he says when you face me, he's saying when you put your attention on him, you are safe. Because you're then going to be drawn to peace, his peace. When you're drawn to his peace, you're not drawn to what you can be drawn to when your attention is on your problems. And just in a few moments, we're going to get into that of where we can be drawn to when our attention is not on him. Where actually we can end up when our attention is not on him, but instead on our problems. So far also, Jesus is saying that we are going to have problems. We are going to face difficulties. We are going to face calamities. But in the midst of all that, if we face it with Jesus, we will be safe. We will be all right. As I stated, this is a fallen world. It's full of broken people. There's no way we're going to go through this life and not come against problems. Unfortunately, we are, because this world isn't perfect. It's filled with imperfect people. It just wouldn't make sense for us to live in an imperfect world and not come against problems. Now here's the part where we are explained where we can be drawn to if we don't face him, if we don't put our attention on Jesus in the midst of our problems. It says, if you gaze too long at the mirrored problems around you, you will sink under the weight of your burdens. Now, we're going to read this in a little bit, but in the Bible, there's scripture that talks about the story where the disciples get into the boat with Jesus, and this is a very famous story, very popular part of the Bible that many of us have learned, many pastors have talked about, many churches have talked about, where the disciples eventually in the boat, they end up coming against both strong waves and strong winds out in the sea. And in that story, from scripture, we end up finding out that it was also actually dark, because they ended up seeing Jesus walking on water. Even unbelievers know this story. That's how popular it is. He walks on water, almost hovering over the water. I don't care what generation ends up seeing that, especially if you've never seen it before, like the disciples, in the midst of them seeing it, we as people are going to freak out. So in the Bible, it talks about how while that's going on and they see him, they think that it's a ghost. They see him kind of from afar. They don't really know it's him. They don't have a good, clear image that it's him. I imagine there's water splashing, and so in the midst of seeing him, they're also seeing waves, and they're feeling fearful and anxiety, stuff like that. And so it was hard to make out that Jesus is who they were seeing. And that's why Peter ended up asking, when Jesus came closer to the boat, if that is you, Lord, call me out to come and I'll come. So that's indicating that he wasn't sure that that was Jesus. And sure enough, Jesus said, come. But what ends up happening to Peter? Peter gets drawn under the water. He starts to sink slowly, because at first he was walking. At first he was on the water, above water, just like Jesus, doing just fine. But then he ended up starting to sink because he got his attention off of Jesus and onto the storm. The storm symbolizes our problems, our circumstances. That's what Jesus is saying here. When we put our attention onto our burdens, they start to draw us under, like what happened to Peter. But then this is what Peter does that Jesus tells us to do. When you start to sink, simply call out, help me, Jesus, and I will lift you up. And what happened when Peter called out to Jesus, he lifted him up. So far, also, besides what I've said, Jesus is also saying that even if you don't face me in the midst of your problems, but end up looking to your burdens, looking to your problems, if you still end up looking to me, even if it's after the fact, I will still be there to give you my peace. I will still be there to help you. I will still be there to provide. In other words, I'm there with you, whether you face me at first or do it afterwards. Now that right there is a loving God. He's expressing and showing, he's demonstrating his love. If you haven't noticed, that's what he's doing. He's demonstrating his love, that whether we go to him before or after, he's right there, available, wonderfully able to help us. Let's go on reading. The closer you live to me, the safer you are. Circumstances around you are undulating, and there are treacherous looking waves in the distance. That's kind of what we talked about when I pointed out the story of the disciples. But a better example is for those that know, who've went to the beach before, or maybe you've watched a movie and you've seen the beach as you can remember, as you've noticed when you went there, whatever the case is for you. From afar, the waves are big. From afar, when we're looking at it and we can see the size of it, it looks intimidating. It looks so intimidating, it makes us not want to get into the water. But what happens when we look long enough, we end up finding out that the waves do not stay the same size the closer it gets to us. It shrinks in size, which we're going to get to that in the passage where Jesus is saying what I'm saying. But they're big at first, and eventually they shrink in size. By the time they get to the shore, they just become almost nothing more than a ripple, and it just flows real slow, real nicely up to our ankles or whatever. And many people who go to the beach not sure, go to the beach with doubt, who go to the beach that are not big fans of it, they may see the big waves, and then once they see it, they're like, and they start turning around. How many people have ever seen these kind of people where they go and they put a toe in, they go in a little bit and they only allow the water to go up to their ankles, but then besides the temperature of the water, when they start seeing the waves and they don't see that it's stopping, they see that it keeps coming and that they're big, one after another, and they just focus on that and they never get in. And so this is what Jesus is going to say now. Fix your eyes on me, the one who never changes. So the same way he was with Peter then, he is still that way now. The same way he helped Peter then, he can help us now. By the time those waves reach you, this is what I'm reading, it's here. They will have shrunk to proportions of my design. He's saying that my whole purpose, my whole philosophy is that when you come to me, those problems that are big in size, when you come to me and I give you what I have to offer, when I give you peace that you can get nowhere, those problems you have will shrink in size, because my peace is that good, my peace is that strong, that it will dilute, that it will shrink the size of your burdens. He goes on to say, I am always beside you. This is like the fourth time that he's just indicating this passage that he is with us, he is with you, helping you face today's waves. So he's saying that he knows that this is a daily thing, that we're up against difficulties. It goes on to read, the future is a phantom seeking to spook you. Laugh at the future. Stay close to me. He ends it like that. He ends it in a way saying, put your confidence in me. You can be sure with me. You can be so sure that you can laugh at the future. Just stay close to me. Although that is a challenge, yet it's that simple. Stay close to God. And I hope and pray that you all do this in 2024. If you've never done it before, this is the year to try it. And I'm willing to help you every step of the way, like I was helped, of how I got here to where I am today. Everything that I read, everything that I broke down, I've lived this. I've applied this, and time again, the waves have shrunk in size. My problems went from big to small. And lastly, what God is indicating, what Jesus is saying, besides that you could put your confidence in me, you could put your faith in me, you can believe in me, that I will come through for you. He's not really saying how in detail, how he will shrink the problem, but that you could just be sure that the problems will shrink, that your problems will end up not even seeming like problems after he's done with you, after he's done releasing his peace to you. In other words, he's saying you could be sure that what I'm saying, that's going to happen. I will come through for you. I will help you. If I say I will help you, then I'm going to help you. And Peter is the example of that. And especially him saying that I don't change. Like I said, the same way he is the God who he was when Peter was around, he is that same God for us. That talks about that, where he says, I don't change. I'm the same today as I was yesterday, and I will be forever. But also, at the end of the day, in the passage, Jesus is also saying, you are not in danger with having problems, but you're in danger having the problems with him not there. And that if you end up facing problems where he's not there, it's not going to be because of him not being there, but it's going to be because you have put him not there. You have not put him to be there with you. He's given the direction, he's given the instructions on how to have him there. You have to seek him You have to put your attention on him. Is as easy as calling on Jesus, like Peter did. Now we're going to read these scriptures down here that ties in and correlates with the passage that we read and broke down and went over together. The first one, Philippians 4:7. And the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus. So this is how his peace can help you. Transcends all understanding. It will guard our hearts and our minds. See, our minds and our hearts are not guarded when we're not filled with God's peace. When we're not with God's peace, when we don't have it, our minds and hearts are not guarded. So we're going to get drawn to anxiety. We're going to get drawn to fear. We're going to get drawn to worry when we're looking at our problems. The problems are meant to draw us there. But God's peace is meant to draw us to the opposite, to draw us away, to draw us to a lightness. The fear, the worry, the anxiety, that's to draw us to a heaviness. As I stated in the passage, it's a weight that brings us down. Matthew 14, verse 29 to 30. Then Peter got down out of the boat, walked on the water, and came toward Jesus. But when he saw the wind, he was afraid, and beginning to sink, cried out, Lord, save me. This is what we've been talking about. Last one, Hebrews 12, verse 2. Let us fix our eyes on Jesus, the author and the perfecter of our faith, who for the joy set before him endured the cross, scorning its shame, and sat down at the right hand of the throne of God. This is a great way to end it, of what Jesus is saying. He is saying, fix your eyes on me. Who am I? I'm the author and perfecter of people's faith. The perfecter, I mentioned that in the beginning. He is to perfection. Who is he? For the joy that set before him, endured the cross. He endured the cross. The joy set before him. The things that he endured, it was not in vain. And the problems that we endure are not in vain either. There's blessings in our problems. If you may not have heard this, when we are tested, tests turn into testimonies. But in this last verse, Jesus is saying, I successfully endured problems. I successfully conquered burdens. I am the one to come to for help. I am the one who's capable of helping. So what I just read was a passage from a devotional book of mine by Sarah Young. I'm planning on at least doing one once a month, so I would choose one from each month. But if anyone would like me to do more, comment below and let me know if you are interested in that. Devotionals are so good, a great way to hear from God, to understand the Bible, and to get into reading it as well. I hope you all enjoyed the passage, and most of all, I hope you all learned something. And I'd love to hear how you felt about this devotion, so comment below and let me know if you're familiar with devotionals or not. Let me know how this helped you. Until next time, God bless.